Today on an all-new Dr. Phil.
The father of a 9-year-old accidentally shot and killed by her brother.
The doctor walked in.
He just put his head in his hands and whispered, "Your son is gone."
Unsecured guns.
My youngest son was shot by my middle son.
I ran across the street. It's like, my son's been shot.
Who's to blame? Were you both surprised when you were arrested? And see what happened when we left children alone with a replica gun. Won't touch these guns, okay?
Yes.
Promise? Let's do it.
Have a good show, everybody. Here we go.
This is a safe place to talk about hard things.
Stand by. We'll count you down.
Today is going to be a changing day in your life.
5, 4.
Get ready to take care of you. Imagine finding out that your child has been shot. Not in a robbery or a crime, but by their best friend or their sibling, and that the gun used was yours. It's unimaginable, but it's happening way more than you think. In fact, in the last year, there were at least 678 unintentional shootings by children, resulting in 287 deaths and 242 injuries. And here's the thing, all of that could have been 100% prevented had the owners of those guns stored them securely.
The number of children getting their hands on guns is alarming, pulling the triggers, hurting themselves, or in some case, killing themselves or their siblings.
The most recent incident was just last weekend. A 6-year-old boy critically wounded after shooting himself in the head.
Milwaukee police are investigating after a 3-year-old boy accidentally shot himself with a gun in his own home. That boy did die at an area hospital.
The father of a 9-year-old accidentally shot and killed by her brother made his initial court appearance. Marcel Jelks was facing several charges, including child neglect resulting in death. The girl's mother is also facing charges.
A San Bernardino mother and her 14-year-old son are both facing felony charges after her 20-month-old daughter was shot in the leg.
In Denver, a father has turned himself into police after his 3-year-old son accidentally shot himself to death. Manuel Lopez turned himself in Monday afternoon. Police arrested the boy's mother, Selena Duran, last week. The accidental shooting happened inside a car parked on South Pecos Street Easter Sunday.
My first guests, Veronica and Nathan, know all too well about the dangers of leaving loaded weapons, where children can access them. Their 9-year-old son picked up a handgun left on a nightstand and shot his 8-year-old brother.
We have 4 children ages from 6 to 14.
And in July of 2021, we had an unfortunate accident involving a firearm. My youngest son was shot by my middle son. During this whole process, CPS was involved. We had criminal charges pressed against us, and right now we are both currently on a 1-year probation sentence. We never thought it would happen to us, but unfortunately it did. In the blink of an eye, it can happen to anyone.
First off, I want to thank both of you for being here, because it takes a lot of courage to come and talk about this publicly. It'd be a lot easier to just stay at home and keep your heads down and not talk about this. But I'm glad you are, because it brings light to this, which needs to be talked about. So, Veronica, tell me what happened.
On that day, I was cleaning up, just doing like our basic weekend stuff. Cleaning up, I was expecting the boys to go out and do their outside chores as well. And then I heard to me, what sounded like a big balloon or a TV crashing. And then I hurried up and ran into my room to see my 8-year-old son on his knees, standing up, on his knees on the bed with blood down to his, maybe his abdomen, lower abdomen area. So right away I went and put pressure on his wounds. I ran across the street to our neighbors and I was like, "My son's been shot, can you take me to the hospital?"
And Nathan, you had 2 rifles and 4 handguns.
Yes, sir, I did.
In the house. And one of these was loaded and just sitting on the nightstand, correct?
Correct.
Did you know it was there? Was it
yes,
intentionally there?
I left it there intentionally. We moved into this house about 4 years ago, and stuff was being stolen from our backyard. And 2 weeks prior to the incident happening, there was someone in our backyard late at night. So I just took it out from my dresser and put it on top just for the sake of my family's protection, you know. And during that 2-week period, it just stayed there. And, you know, and something told me that morning just to put it up because, you know, nothing was going to happen. But I made the big mistake of not calling the police and reporting that someone was in my backyard. And I just wanted to take matters into my own hands to protect my family.
Okay, well, let me ask you something. Were you, first off, were you prepared in the night to pick up a handgun off of your nightstand and go shoot and kill somebody for stealing a bicycle?
Well, it was a lot more than a bicycle being stolen, but
what
not really.
What else was being stolen?
I had an expensive welder, lawnmower tools, all my children's bikes. Just over like a 3-month period, a lot of stuff was being stolen.
Enough that you were willing to shoot somebody, kill somebody over it?
Well, just injure them or whatever I had to do.
Are you a really good shot?
Pretty good.
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of people. The reason I'm asking is I've talked to a lot of people, and I've seen stories where, you know, somebody does something in road rage, or they steal a car, somebody chases them down and, you know, shoots at the car and shoots them in the back of the head and kills them over something that was stolen, and then have to live the rest of their life knowing they shot and killed somebody over
materialistic things, yes, sir.
Or an item. And I really wonder if you thought that through. Somebody
really
steals
didn't.
a welder and you shoot and kill them.
Yeah, I wasn't really thinking. Like I said, I made the mistake of not calling the police and reporting it.
So I was wondering if you start working backwards. If you look, I own guns. I'm not criticizing you for that. You say you had 2 unloaded rifles under the bed, 3 unloaded handguns in the dresser, and then the one on the nightstand, and you had 1 bullet in it?
Just 1 bullet, yes, sir.
When this happened, you got your son to the hospital, and fortunately, he's alive.
Yes, very, very blessed.
And
Yes.
And you told the kids many times, don't play with guns.
Yes, we have had that talk many times.
I mean, this wasn't something where you just recklessly left them around and
No.
never mentioned to them, these are dangerous.
No, they've had.
They knew.
Yeah. And were you confident that they would leave them alone?
Yes, sir. We thought that they were confident enough to just trust our word, you know, listen to what we said about how dangerous they were.
How do you feel now?
Now I feel like they've learned a lesson and something was learned, but at the time of the accident, I felt, you know, disgusted with myself, irresponsible, you name it, that's how I felt.
If you knew certain things, you would not refer to it as an accident. You would refer to it as an incident, because accidents are not foreseeable. Accidents are things that, you know, happen that are happenstance, they're not foreseeable, they're not predictable. And the truth is, you now know this was pretty predictable, right? You know that kids can't be relied on to predict the consequences of their actions,
yes, sir.
to control their impulses.
Yes, sir.
Your intentions were not bad. You had no bad intent here for your children to be injured or put in harm's way.
Never.
Nathan and Veronica were shocked to learn they were being charged with making firearms accessible to a child. You know, charged. And we're going to talk about that after the break. Plus, how well do you know your child? Would they touch a gun after they had been warned not to? Find out what happens when children don't think they're being watched. That's after the break.
Do not touch the guns. They're not okay to play with.
Right after the teacher left, the boys were sniffing out the gun. I now got a complete gaggle of boys around the guns. I think I should go in right now. I'm going in. Nathan and Veronica say that they taught their 4 children about the dangers of real guns and even removed all the toy guns from their home so as not to glorify gunplay and certainly not to have any confusion about anything concerning guns. They say they felt so secure in their teachings that they were okay leaving 2 rifles and 4 handguns, one which was loaded, fully accessible in their bedroom. Now, that decision nearly cost their son his life. Were you both surprised when you were arrested?
Yes, at the time, because it was over a year and a half after the incident happened. It was midnight when the police came banging on our door. All of our children were asleep, and they came and took us away.
They decide that you're a threat to your children because you did something that was reckless, so a year and a half you spend with those children, then they come and take you out of the home. That makes a lot of sense. Now, I mentioned that you had talked to your kids about this, you'd taken the toy guns out, which is, certainly steps in the right direction. But, I've actually done an experiment about this. We all like to think our children heed our warnings, especially when it comes to things as dangerous and deadly as guns. You might be shocked to see what happens when we left children alone with replica guns, told them they were real, and warned them not to touch them. Take a look.
Do not touch the guns. They're not okay to play with. They're real guns and they're not to be played with. Does everybody understand?
Yeah. Right after the teacher left, the boys were sniffing out the gun. 2 minutes later, the dollhouse roof came off. Notice how the little girl, right in the face of danger, couldn't be less interested. However, the boys continued to circle the weapon, becoming more and more curious. We took the girls out of the room, and the boys finally went for broke. I now got a complete gaggle of boys around the guns. They're in their hands, they're pointed with their fingers on the triggers. Elapsed time about 11 minutes. I think I should go in right now. I'm going in. Hey boys, how y'all doing? Okay, let me have that. Okay, whoa, 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 whoa. Now, let me ask you something. Who remembers that we weren't supposed to play with the guns? Tell me what happens if one of these guns goes off.
It makes a loud sound and it can kill someone.
Okay, listen up. I want all of you to promise me that you'll never play with a gun again. Okay, now, if I leave these guns here, you guys won't touch them, will you?
No.
You won't touch these guns, okay?
Yes.
Promise?
Yes.
All right, good deal. But see, even after the fact, they have no respect for the gun. No respect, no fear. Okay, now, let's take a look at a freeze frame here. Look at what's happening. Now, this is the child of a mother that said she had multiple conversations with her child, was 100% certain that out of anybody in there, he would not touch the gun. That gun is in his hand. His finger is toward, if not on the trigger, and he's got it in his hand, and then he continues on and raises the gun. Now, this is within minutes of an authority figure teacher saying, don't touch the guns, don't touch the guns, don't touch the guns. Then I come in, talk to them again, tell them, leave them there. It happened again. They're just curious. And by the way, this is not a one-off. This is what happens. If that gun hadn't been available, would this have happened?
No, sir.
Yeah. And what do you do with the guns now?
We don't have any.
They're gone.
Yes, sir.
Will you have them in the home again?
Very unlikely.
Yeah. And you understand there's nothing wrong with the child. The child's being a child. That's just their brains. The last part of the brain to grow is part of the neocortex, and that's the part of the brain that predicts consequences of actions. Where are you now with CPS? And
well, we got our children back about 12 to 13 days after they've taken them away. At first, when they took them away, our caseworker told us it might be up to a year before we even get to get them back. So, you know, it was a nightmare.
And now you have no guns in the house, and the children can't get it caught in this situation again.
Yes, sir.
All right, we're going to keep talking about this. I want y'all to listen and chime in if you have some things to contribute. We're going to talk to a mother who saw her son off to his best friend's house. Just go see a buddy, only to find out a few hours later that her son was being rushed to the hospital. We'll hear her tragic, 100% preventable story after the break.
The minute the words came out of the ER doctor's mouth that my son was gone, my entire world imploded. That was the first 10 minutes of my life sentence.
Today we're talking about whether people should be held accountable if their child or another person is injured or killed using their unsecured weapon. And look, this is not a debate about guns. I mean, it's really not. It may sound like a debate about guns, whether you should have guns or not have guns. That's not what this is about. I want to underline the word unsecured guns. Kristen says the last time she saw her 15-year-old son, Ethan, alive, he was heading to his best friend's house. Take a look.
My name is Kristen Song, and I'm Ethan's mommy. On January 31st, 2018, Ethan asked if he could walk to his best friend's house. I came downstairs. I could see 2 police cruisers pulling up in front of our home. One of the officers just kept telling me, "Your son is in an ambulance. He's being raced down to the hospital. You need to find your husband, and you need to go now." We raced into the parking lot of the hospital. A police officer and a social worker ushered us into a tiny room. I remember watching the door handle, and I remember when that door handle started turning. The doctor walked in. He slid down the wall, and he put his head in his hands, and he just whispered, "Your son is gone." Mike started shouting, "How did Ethan die? We have no idea." And he could have told me just about any other reason that my son died that might not have surprised me, except for, "Your son was shot in the head."
Krista, I don't even know how a mother's ears hear that. How did you process that at the time?
I fell to the floor and I rocked in a fetal position and I prayed to God to take me. It implodes your world. The minute the words came out of the ER's doctor's mouth that my son was gone, my entire world imploded. And, you know, there's absolutely zero way to get your life back. You just can't do it. You're broken forever.
The doctor couldn't even handle it.
No, the doctor actually was from my hometown. His children actually went to school with Ethan. So actually the entire trauma team was from Guilford, and they knew when they saw Ethan. They knew him from our hometown. And he just slid down the wall and he just put his head in his hands and he just whispered, "Your son is gone." And that was the first 10 minutes of my life sentence.
Ethan had been friends with this boy for most of his life, right?
Yes, they met in kindergarten.
Did you have any idea that the family owned guns, that they had guns accessible? What did you know about that?
100%. I had zero idea.
When you reconstructed this to find out what happened, what did you learn?
I learned that his son had gained access to his father's guns for about 6 months and was showing all of his friends, that the boys were taking photos and videos of themselves posing with the guns. At first, it was pretty innocent, just posing with the guns like they would see in a movie. And then they got more comfortable with the guns, and then they started pointing them at each other, and they started taking videos, and, you know, until the day that Ethan was killed.
He was shot directly in the head. And what has happened with the young man that shot him in the head at this point? Have you talked to him? Have you?
I've had zero contact with him.
Zero contact. Have you had contact with the parents?
Zero contact.
They haven't reached out to you?
They have never once reached out to me or apologized or made any effort at all. And part of that is because, you know, when I was sitting with the prosecutor and I assumed the father was going to be charged. The father brought 3 handguns and a rifle into his home. He stored those 3 handguns in a shoebox with the ammunition. He is the adult in the house. And so all along, my husband and I were assuming that the gun owner was going to be charged. And instead, the prosecutor said, oh, no, we're going to charge the 14-year-old with manslaughter. And literally at that moment, a fire was lit in me. And I just looked at her and I said, how can we change this? And she said, you need to pass a law. You need to change the legislation. And so that's what my husband and I started to do.
And was the 14-year-old charged?
He was.
And what's the outcome?
He is in college now. He's going to turn 20. And I hear he's doing well.
Kristen says her family went from loving, happy, close-knit to literally imploding into a million pieces. You know, talk about the effects of all of this and the fact that it was 100% avoidable. We'll be right back. Closed captioning provided by During the pandemic, unintentional shooting deaths by children increased by nearly 1/3. The majority of people killed in firearm accidents are under 24, and most of these young people are shot by someone else, usually someone their own age. Now, this is something Krista knows firsthand because her 15-year-old son, Ethan, was tragically killed while playing with an unsecured handgun at his best friend's home. Now, you know, this had been going on for, you found out, like 6 months, right? That this young man they'd been posting this on social media, this sort of thing. So this can't be something that wasn't known if the parents had been monitoring social media at all, if they had been aware of what was going on.
Well,
they had to have some idea.
Well, I would think the father would have known since he was a private investigator, and these guns were in his bedroom, but he didn't. The boys also, because these children are so smart, they outsmart us, they just created all fake accounts. So they created fake Snapchat accounts, and they only invited in the people that they were comfortable knowing were going to keep their secret. And I think over 100 kids were liking the pictures, and not one child stepped up. Not one child told their parents. Not one child told the teacher. We had 6 months to save my child.
Nobody said anything. No kid said, hey.
And, you know, when I sat with the detective and I said, why in the world didn't these children step up? And he said, I'm going to tell you why. One thought he would be iced out from the lunch table. One, was such good friends with your son that he was so scared that Ethan would never talk to him again. And one didn't think guns were that dangerous. So those are 14-year-old, reasons. And, that's how they think.
You say the gun owner had 3 handguns with ammunitions, and the keys, everything to the containers, all in the same place.
Yes.
And, when you break this down psychologically, everybody thinks it's not going to happen to me.
100%.
You can even do this in your own home, but then if your kid's going to spend the night somewhere with a buddy or go to a party, you need to ask the questions, right? You know that. You got to ask, what's the situation with guns in the home? Do you have guns in the home? Are they locked up? Are they in a safe? Are they protected? And people will think, oh, this is a weirdo mother or something. Wouldn't you a whole lot rather people say, oh, she's the gun mom, than be in the situation you're in now?
100%. I probably like 4 months after Ethan died, I did a talk for a group of people, and one of the fathers came up to me after and said, I got to tell you, I'm just really uncomfortable asking my children's, play date parents if they own a gun. And, my response was, it may be uncomfortable to ask those questions, but what's really uncomfortable is when you're sitting with a funeral director and they're asking you, do you want to bury your child or do you want to cremate your child? It's really uncomfortable when you have to watch your child get lowered into the ground and you know that you will never, ever see them again. That's uncomfortable.
Yeah. That's uncomfortable. Now, Ethan's Law, which is a true passion of yours, requires that all handguns, all firearms, loaded or unloaded, have to be safely stored if there are minors in the home.
Yes.
Lock them up.
There's, I'm not sure you all know, but 76% of all the school shootings are done with an unsecured gun. If you don't secure your weapons, you're really rolling the dice.
Yeah. You got to make a decision, and that is, can you deal with asking an awkward question? Can you deal with taking that extra step of going by Target or Walmart or wherever and picking up a gun safe that you can hold in your hand for $20 or whatever, and eliminate any chance? If you think it's 1 in 10,000, what's it worth to eliminate that? And if you ask that question and you feel awkward about it, you'll get over that. Next, a kickball game in the park ends in gunfire and a life changed forever. We're going to meet a brave young woman who was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time when 2 teens decided to start firing in a public space. Be right back. Closed captioning provided by...
In May of 2021, I was sitting in a playground. I was shot by a stray bullet. There were 2 young teenagers that were involved in this shooting. It's something that ruined my life. It flipped my world upside down.
That phone call that your daughter has been shot is one no mother would ever want. Since this shooting, I am constantly worried for my daughter's safety. My heart is broken.
I 100% think that the parents should be responsible.
The parents need to be held responsible. The juveniles need to be held responsible. And right now, no one has been held accountable for this.
Well, in May of 2021, Amanda was enjoying an afternoon in the park with friends when 2 teens decided to start firing. You say you were sitting on a park bench watching...
I had just finished playing kickball with my friends, and we were gathered around in the playground talking like we usually do about the game, just having fun, and heard gunfire, couple shots, and I could see my friends fall to the ground to avoid getting shot, but I didn't have any time to react. I felt something hit my side, and I immediately fell to the ground because I lost complete control of my legs and my core, so I just fell off the bench I was sitting on.
This severed your spine, you fractured a rib, damage to the spleen, diaphragm. This wreaked havoc.
It did, yeah. I lost complete motor and sensory control. I can't feel anything from my waist down. It's changed how I do, my daily activities. I use a wheelchair for all mobility, getting dressed, going to the bathroom, much different than how I was doing before and how most people do.
And you say nobody else's life has changed as a function of this? No shooter, no parents of shooter, nobody has...
No, there's been no resolution as far as Amanda's case through the justice system. They have an idea, but they can't prosecute anybody.
Would it help you if someone was brought to justice on this?
I think that it would help me. And when we talk about justice, to me, it's more than just slapping a fine or putting somebody in jail. What's important to me is if the individuals, these teens involved, the parents of those involved, the repercussions were to get involved in more educational type things, go to classes, as you mentioned, the couple had gone to class, getting involved in interventions for children, for after-school programs, getting involved in community action, I think would be something that would feel really important to me.
Because if they've not had any accountability whatsoever, then you have to assume they're still out on the street with guns in their hands.
Yes.
And subject to victimizing others the way they victimized you.
Mm-hmm. And influencing others to do the same, friends.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. What is your goal in terms of physical recovery? Are you where you're going to be? Is there progress to be made?
Since I've been shot, I haven't had any progress in terms of physical or sensory progress. Still need to use a wheelchair. I work very hard with my physical therapist, as you could see in the videos, using a robotic exoskeleton for walking. I go out in the city and use that. So I'm trying to do as much as I can with technology. Being paralyzed is very difficult. There's it's very minimal progress, but trying to do as much as I can, getting back into adaptive sports, doing the things I normally used to do as much as I can. Those are my goals.
Well, I'm very proud that you came here today.
Thank you. I'm proud of you. Thank you.
We're going to add someone to the conversation. I want you to stay right here. We're going to add someone to the conversation here. A former executive in the firearm industry says fear has been used as a marketing tool to get people to purchase more guns and forego simple security measures. We're going to add him to the conversation after the break.
TV.
Many homeowners own guns for protection, and many of those homeowners are responsible and store those weapons safely and securely. Sadly, though, a shocking number of people don't. And it's those guns that often end up in the wrong hands and end up injuring or killing people unintentionally. Now, Ryan has owned guns for years and had a very successful career in the firearm industry, and he joins us virtually now. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me today.
Well, I appreciate it. And you say that fear has been a marketing strategy, a way to get people to buy guns and also not be very motivated in securing them. Is that why you were motivated to leave the industry?
Yeah, sadly, certainly in the last 10 or 15 years, we've seen a transformation of what drives firearm sales in the United States. And a lot of it is motivated by fear. And as we know in our system, certainly our political system, a lot of fear can be irrational. And when there's a seed of fear, I mean, we heard earlier in the show here, right? We have bikes and welders being stolen from a house, and you worry about what's going to happen to your family, and you worry about what's going to happen to the rest of your possessions. And you go out and you make a purchasing decision, and it's largely based on fear, right? Fear of what's going to come down the street, fear of what's going to be taken out of the garage. And sadly, in the last 10 or 15 years, not enough time has been spent on the other side of the equation, which is the incredible amount of responsibility that goes along with that purchase.
Yeah, I've actually talked to people who have shot and killed someone, and I can tell you it changes their life forever. And if there was anything they could do to take it back, they would take it back. Because if you shoot somebody that's stealing something or whatever, after the fact, it's like, I wish they had just taken that and 10 things more rather than shoot them, because I've now got to live with that for the rest of my life. And I don't think people ever get on the other side of that transaction and think about how they're going to feel if they take someone's life over a car or a lawnmower or some jewelry.
If it's not worth dying for, then it's not worth killing for. And there was a time when gun ownership in America really was laced with that kind of sort of, really out there in the forefront responsibility. Again, we now have, you look around the country, many of the folks in your studio there today probably drove there or rode in an Uber. You look around, we have about 270 million registered vehicles in the United States now. And that's a lot. Get on the road, and it seems like a lot. We have 415 million firearms in the United States, 150 million more than we have vehicles. You can't have that sort of prevalence of firearms. And I'm a gun owner. I hunted with my boys just a couple days ago. I shoot a lot. But you can't have that prevalence of firearms in a complex democracy like ours and not have responsibility, norms, and regulations play a vital role, or you're going to have a lot more stories like we've heard here today. And as you've noted, every one of those is preventable, 100% preventable. Not a single one was an accident. Accidents are meteors falling out of the sky. These things are not accidents.